Bethan. No, I'm joking. Right. So, we've decided to do some short videos.
Yes.
Just explain what Advocates and Angels is, how it came about, and then just the day-to-day run-ins of it, what's going on in the community, what's going on with you, me, the volunteers, and courage. So, first things first, Advocates and Angels.
Yes.
How did it begin? Where did it start?
Well, it all started in 2015.
Is it that far back?
Yes and no. It all started with Lydia, obviously, and Lydia's my pregnancy with Lydia. But I think I really started to feel like I needed to do something within the community of ALN and disability, or just for my own sanity, in 2000 and I want to say 2000, probably end of 2016, early 2017. Lydia had been in and out of hospital. She'd been in Cardiff for 4 months, Liverpool for 4 months, and Bristol for 2 months by this
all
point.
in one sort of...
No, with gaps in between. Right. And then in between those gaps, so Cardiff was 4 months, and then a few gaps, and then in and out of hospital. Liverpool for 4 months, in and out of hospital. Bristol, it was a couple of weeks. Then we were home. Then we were back in Bristol for a couple of weeks, almost 2 months. And we had gotten back home to Swansea. We went for a consultant's. So quite a lot of intensive issues had come up with her, things that doctors really, really did need to know about her. And then we went to a paediatrician's meeting, and the paediatrician said, "Talk to me about your pregnancy." My head was like, I can't live my life on repeat any longer. And she got a bit... What do you mean? She did get a bit funny, because she was new to Lydia's health team, if you wish, and I was very reluctant to have to tell our story all over again, like the amount of operations that she'd had, the amount of intensive care visits she'd had. By this point, she'd already had multiple cardiac arrests.
You know, by this point, how many times do you reckon that you would have probably explained that history? How many times do you reckon you would have done that by this point, when you sort of got to the point where you're like, I'm not doing this again?
Probably close to 700, 800 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, okay. Yeah.
Close to that, because some doctors, I'd see 4 doctors in a day, and each time I saw a doctor, I'd have to say it. If she was in intensive care, it was pretty much every doctor's, you'd definitely have to say it at the beginning, when the child's admitted, when Lydia was admitted, and then every time there was a doctor change, and sometimes that could be 2 times a day, 3 times a day. I suppose
you've got the nurses.
Then you've got a dietitian. Yeah. You've got a chest physio.
I suppose as well, emergency admissions, you got the ambulance crew, paramedic.
Yeah, and don't forget, when you're in intensive care as well, you get a change of anaesthetist quite quickly as well. And she had a grade 5 intubation level, which is the highest grade of intubation. So the anaesthetists wanted to know her, not just tell me a bit about her history. They wanted to know everything, all cards on the table. So yeah, by this point, if you think there's 365 days in a year, and she was almost 2, well, yeah, probably close to anywhere between 650, 800 times, I reckon. So when we had this new consultant come on, and she just wanted to know if I'd taken my vitamins from pregnancy, I think just something in my head was like, I can't keep repeating this, and I cannot keep living on this level of repeat, because every time I was repeating it, it was quite traumatizing. And it was I felt at the time it was quite interrogating.
Mm.
Obviously it wasn't, they just needed to know. But I just always felt like it was an interrogation. And it wasn't anything that they couldn't access.
Yeah.
But it was just obviously because the amount of paperwork that Lydia did come with, she probably had more like paperwork than she did height at that time. But because the amount of paperwork she came with, I appreciate that they want to know the ins and outs. But yeah, to start from the pregnancy, I was just like, I'm not up for dealing with this. And our surname is German, and it's Germon. And you've seen it.
Yeah.
I have to go, hi, I'm Bethan German, Germon.
Or Dave answers, it's Germon, David Germon. And I'm like, why does it say it like that?
Because otherwise I get letters for Bethan Gammon or German, MAN, which is fine, but when you're in a health board, that's what they look for, and of course they can't find you on the record. So even just saying her name was like, I've got to even spell out her surname. We live on a very, very, very Welsh road. Janine lives 2 doors away from me. So
I've noticed like phoning up like when I'm sorting out the gas or electric or something and spelling it out. I'm like, I won't say it, I'll spell it.
Spell it. You have to start with spelling it. So even that was like, and of course we went to Liverpool, and a lot of doctors in Liverpool are known with Welsh patients, because that's where a lot of North Wales patients go to. But when you speaking to doctors in England, it's very different. So even that was just kind of like, I can't keep repeating my address, her name, her date of birth. It got to a point they asked me my date of birth, and I said it was Lydia's, and they were like, no, that's hers. And I was like, I don't even know when I was born. And I had to go, when's my birthday? Literally, because I thought, I can't remember my date of birth. I've said this child's date of birth so many times now, everything else seems irrelevant. And I decided to get a little postcard with our surname, like first line of our address, and then her date of birth, and then her conditions, and just basically a little briefing of what her conditions were to begin with, and like so someone had a little bit of an understanding, because her genetic condition was 1 in a million, and then she had another condition that wasn't associated with the genetic condition, which was 1 in 250,000, and then she had significant cerebral palsy on top of that due to trauma due to surgery. So it wasn't just a complex condition, it was like layers of complex conditions. So trying to get that across to someone of importance that's going to take over a healthcare, I thought it was quite important to get those little bits down in writing. And I find that with doctors, especially for some reason, I don't know if they're just visual people, like you tend to find like this dynamic of people tend to process things in a certain way. I just found whenever anything was in writing, a doctor seemed to kind of read it and go, oh, I understand. And it's very difficult to get a doctor to listen. They hear what you say, but actually listen. And I found when it was written down, they just tend, like whoever was dealing with her tend to kind of, they were like, oh, I get it, a lot quicker. So it became a postcard, which became an A4 sheet of paper. Those A4 sheets of paper got put in the bin quite quickly because they weren't from the health board. Our palliative care nurse, I kind of explained to her the importance of us having this A4 sheet, and she thought it was a great idea as well. So
the A4 sheet you would take to sort of every admission, every appointment?
Yep, GPs, clinics, physiotherapy sessions, private physiotherapy sessions. It was just a lot easier just to have it there and not have to like constantly remember a lot of it, like medication names as well. Medications are like really, really long. They're never just like I don't know, they're never just like a 4-letter word.
No.
They're like really, really long and complicated. And they're very, very similarly spelt as well. So a slight slip of like interpretation, or what's the word?
I know.
Mispronunciation.
Yeah.
You could potentially be setting her, like your child up to be having another drug. So it was quite important to get those things down. And then, so it became, as time went on, it became more of a thing, our A4 sheet of paper.
So what did you do? Start photocopying them? And
I had about 20 copies. I had 4 or 5 in just envelopes. I've still got them. They got little llamas on. 4 or 5 of those in both dashboards of we had 2 vans, one little van to get in and around town, and then the big van to get her back and forth to like bigger appointments or tea haven. And then so I had about 4 or 5 copies in the van, a couple of copies at my mother's house, 2 copies in a feeding bag at all times, and one in my handbag. And I think we had a photograph of it on the drive as well, like Google Drive or Google Photographs. So anytime we kind of needed it, it was like always there. And then a couple of friends clocked on to what we were doing and was like, oh, this is brilliant, you know, we need to do this. And then I was getting approached by a couple of other people saying, oh, I've heard it just is like within the health board, especially in palliative care, the circles are quite small. So
those friends of friends, they've got children or had children with complex needs and disabilities.
Or we've gone to a clinic and someone said, hey, have you considered writing this down? Like there's another mum who does this, that and the other. And I can imagine like I was labelled as quite organised. To be honest though, I don't think I am organised. I think it just that level of it was more of a safety net for me, really. I'm not actually as anal as people think I am.
Yeah, I suppose though, having to repeat yourself so many times, I don't know, you could imagine it being quite easy to forget something, and even though it could be potentially be quite minor, that could have had a massive impact, couldn't it, if you'd have forgot one little thing.
Yeah, and it was a way of me and Dave being able to hand over Lydia's care as well without having to repeat things, because sometimes, I know it sounds crazy, but she used to have so many rounds of medication a day. I used to check the t-shirt that I was wearing thinking, was this yesterday's dose, today's dose? Oh, like, yeah, and you're so sleep deprived and exhausted. It was kind of like, okay, so we got into a habit at one time of texting each other just to say meds done, or like we got so like lazy at it. We just sent a little green tick just to like that was sent at 8 o'clock this morning. So Dave's done them, I've done them, you know, what have you. Then we broke it down into I only did the meds and Dave only did the oxygen and physio, because it was less messy. You kind of like I was accountable for that, he was accountable for that. That kind of worked for a while, but then when you have a sleepless night or what have you, or you know one of us had been up with her longer than the other, it kind of made sense to have it in a binder, to just pass the binder over, really, because that way it was just a bit more reliable. But that it kind of came about in that form, and then it became a website in May 2020, which then took off quite quickly. We had hundreds of downloads within the first month, and it was really lovely to see, and that was really nice because I created the actual website and all the PDF printouts while Lydia was still with me, so she was sat next to me when the original ones were made. And as that went out, other mums were saying, hey, this is brilliant, but could you include this section? Oh, I really am struggling with this. Is there any chance we could make this? So, there were a few, there have been alterations, and I think on the outside, someone could see it as being a bit of inconsistent, they're a bit inconsistent. But it's just kind of grown and developed to be as inclusive as possible, because obviously I made them on pre-anticipated questions that I kind of knew when you go in for admission, you kind of know the first 10 questions. So it was kind of like, right, okay, So I expanded that to like clinics, to like dentist trips, you know, that kind of thing. And then obviously Lydia only had certain conditions, so there were other parents getting involved that those disabilities didn't impact Lydia, so I wouldn't have a clue. So we've had loads of help from other mums as well, and it's been really good to hear the feedback, because I don't like people just saying, "Oh, this is brilliant," and end of I love to hear criticism. I think I am quite critical in some ways, but I think it's just a way of like developing and growing, so it can include as many people and as many families as possible.
So when you had the website in 2020, that's when you came up with the name Advocates and Angels.
Yeah.
So why Advocates and Angels? How did you come up with that name?
So, my best friend Shannon had a little girl, Olivia, who had passed away the year before, and it became very apparent after Olivia passed away that she was always part of us, but she wasn't. And there were areas where she wasn't as included anymore, and I was very conscious that like Lydia was actively in and out of palliative care, and that could happen to us, and it could potentially happen to any other parent as well. So I don't know, the name just came, I suppose, and I thought, oh, I really quite like that. I'd like almost heard it in like an audible voice, and I thought, I'm gonna have to Google what an advocate is because I'm not even sure. And then I thought, well, yeah, actually, that is what I was at the time to Lydia. I was her voice. But also being Dave's wife as well, I was so sick of seeing mums. Everything targeted at mums. And I know a lot more women use social media than men, but I've also seen the way that Dave's been treated throughout the years, as if he's just not part of the team. And I just kind of like the whole fact that with regards to the medical binder, it wasn't like mums and children or mum's voice, or it was like, actually this could play a part if my mum wanted to take her in.
Yeah, because an advocate, it could be family, friends.
Yeah, and if I had trusted Lydia's to you in your care, you would be her voice for that time. It wouldn't have to just be dependent on a family member, or it would be whoever is the voice at the time. And I thought, I quite like that, but it will also encompass parents who have lost children as well, because I think there's such a depth of knowledge that these parent carers have gained throughout the years of their children's lives, and then once their child has passed away, they're not useless. They're grieving, but they've probably got a lot to give as well. I feel like I've got a lot to give after Lydia's passed away, and I feel very, very passionate on ensuring that no one felt the depths of isolation that I felt. And I'm not talking about COVID isolation. During my pregnancy, it was very lonely, and during the first couple of years of Lydia's life, it was really lonely. I've met Claire, and I gelled with Claire almost instantly. But then she lived in Torquay, and Newton Abbot, and it was just someone that I really connected with for the first time, and both our kids were, I wouldn't say they were as poorly as each other when they met, and I think their lives were as what's the word?
I don't know. I hate it when that happens.
It wasn't their lives were unpredictable, and it was someone who's finally in the same boat, and someone that you could pop in and have a cup of tea with, me and Claire, she loves the story about the war, and it's become quite relevant to advocates and angels today, with courage being major courage of the advocate army.
Yeah, okay, I'll quickly butt in. So, advocates and angels. So, I remember first seeing the website, and you had a picture of a butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like toes, and then there was like, looked like sort of like a fetus.
Yep.
So, say about that.
So, after Lydia passed away, we've got some footprints of hers, and as we were taking footprints of her, we were crying as we were doing it, and we put her feet backwards, so they're crossed over, and I was absolutely devastated that I was like, oh, I can't believe that.
So when you did the actual impressions of them, they were like, oh, right, okay.
But it was because we were just so like upset whilst we were doing them, and we wanted them to be perfect, because we knew we probably we wouldn't be getting any more after that. And the nurse at the hospice had gone out to get us a canvas, and it was like our one shot, and I put them backwards, and I was absolutely, I know that there was bigger things to be upset about, but I was like, oh no. And Dave instantly said, oh, it's made a butterfly. And I was like, okay, we'll roll with it. We'll go with that, because I can't get any more upset than I'm feeling right this minute. And moments before Lydia passed away, 2 butterflies were really like in my face to the point I had to pull back. And yeah, from those feet, I quite liked the thought. So after Lydia passed away in July, I couldn't bring myself to say that she had died. I couldn't say the words. Every time I just, it was like, it got into my throat. It was like, and I just kept like, oh, you know that feeling just before you're going to be sick? That kind of like, and it just floods your mouth.
Yeah, you get like the
watery feeling, like a sour feeling. I just, every time I had, like, someone asked me how she was or what's going on, I just couldn't say it. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have, like, still be part of Advocates and Angels, because now I'm in this club that I don't want to be in. Wouldn't it be nice to have a way of like incorporating something where you can say my child has died, but without actually having to say they've passed away or they've died? So I thought it'd be nice to have something like a club. And I know that sounds really silly, but it was obviously a coping mechanism for me. And I did like the way that the butterflies, her feet were backwards. So I thought, oh, that's nice. But actually, like, she's still the same. She's just not. And a bit like a caterpillar with the butterfly, they're still the same internally. Like, she hasn't fundamentally changed who she is as an individual. It's just she's not here. And as I was staring at her footprints one night, just like laying there, I could see how her little toes made like a little caterpillar. And I thought, yep, I like that. Thought, okay. And then yeah, so the first toe has got like a little fetus in it. So the toes go from the fetus down to the caterpillar, and then the balm of the foot makes the chrysalis care packages, so like a chrysalis, and then the 2 feet in themselves make the butterfly. And just before she died in the July, about 2 weeks before, we had released butterflies with her as well. So there was just a lot of meaning that came from, it's all well thought about, I suppose. But the whole plan, at some point, when I have 2 minutes to myself, is to ensure that the club starts from pregnancy. It will start as soon as someone goes into fetal medicine. As soon as that grieving process kicks in, we'll be there. hopefully.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's to incorporate.
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah. I hate the thought of someone not getting support or being a part of something because they don't check a box. So
So that was 2020. When did you decide that you wanted to become a registered charity? When did you just think, I'm going to do this? Because I think I remember you doing, so the care packages were a big part of Advocates and Angels, weren't they?
Yeah.
And I remember you doing that, and then.
So we developed
the March you asked me to be trustee?
I think so. We've been doing the care packages since 2017.
So what's the care packages?
So care packages are essential care packages for any parent, again I don't like these check boxes, that has an emergency admission. So your child has fallen down, broken their arm, popped their arm out of socket, needs surgery, had a car accident, had septic shock, I don't know, whatever the reason is, and you've had to just get into your car or an ambulance and meet your child at the hospital, and you don't have any means or ways of buying essentials like toothbrush and toothpaste. Because one thing that happens when your child goes in for an emergency and you've got that emergency shock, you stink. It's just this like...
I remember you saying it's a different smell.
It's just this funk. It's like, I can't explain. You just want to rip your skin off. That kind of, I just need to wash. I don't care. I just need, like, well, that was for me personally anyway.
The thing is, they all say, don't they, 24 hours in hospital is like days.
Oh, yeah.
Time moves differently, doesn't it?
Yeah. Time doesn't exist in the NHS. It just doesn't. Or in hospital. But so I was very keen on, like, giving parent carers dignity. Like, so there was one admission, I'd gone in, I was wearing a shoe and a flip-flop. I didn't have proper trousers on, but it was only till the next morning I was like, what have I come in? It was just literally like panic stations. I think she'd stopped breathing. There were so many emergency things, and by this point we hadn't developed like our grab bag. I think we had. We had loads of you've seen the house. We had loads of like emergency things, but I think even in the panic I must have just forgotten it. I'm not sure if the ambulance guy got me to carry the oxygen tank, and therefore just
got in after.
I must have forgotten it, and it kind of revealed to me that our local hospital, there is nothing for parents that have travelled like 60 miles away. Like, I was really fortunate our local hospital's on the doorstep, but it services the whole of West Wales, and I think other kids can be airlifted there as well. So it was kind of like, well, what if Dave wasn't on the doorstep? We need to do something.
Well, it's even like the bigger hospitals like in Cardiff and everything, even though they have shops, on a weekend they're closed.
And it was this time I'd gone down to WH Smith. Sorry, WH Smith. I had bought a toothbrush, a toothpaste. I think it was a stick of deodorant. Must have been, because they would have been, for me. I must have been thinking like I can get hand soap to at least have a soap and wash. So it must have been deodorant, and it came to over £7. And I was like living on carer's allowance, which is 67 quid a week, and I was like, I thought, I can't justify this, but I have to. And then I went to pay, and I'd forgotten my wallet. And it was a genuine, because we had been, like, dropped everything and run. So I walked back up to the ward with my shoe and my flip-flop. And they were like, is everything all right? And I was like, I'm starving, I'm exhausted, I've got no way of, like, cleaning myself, so I went and had a bit of a wash, but there's only so much you can do with soap, isn't there? Like, it's not like so I thought, right,
it's never the nice soap, is it, really?
It's just hand soap. It's okay, it does what it's meant to do, but Yeah, and I just remember just feeling really like a shower would not fix a lot of things, but it definitely helped boost my own self-esteem. And then the doctor came in, and I couldn't really think because I was like, I can't hear anything you're saying because I'm still in this like bubble of trauma, and I can't move past that quite yet. So, yeah, we decided to develop a few care packages in 2017, and then they just became a thing over time.
Yeah.
And people were donating back to the hospital ward, so the hospital would ring to say we've had a delivery of this, so that made the next pack, and then 1 out of 10 families would give a bit back. And that like by the time we had fundraised a little bit or found some funds, or I would just go out and buy things when I saw them an offer. We try and create about 10 to 20 packs at a time. Yeah, that kind of went in that direction, if you wish. So yeah, we had the Chrysalis care packages, the Butterfly Club for bereavement or people like myself that were a bit lost in grief. And we don't really do a great deal with the Butterfly Club yet. It's just knowing that you're not on your own. So it's a bit of a Facebook support group at the moment. But now we've opened the bereavement room. Hopefully, we'll be able to support people professionally. And then the Caterpillar Club, which is the medical binders and tube feeding resources and Major Courage. And hopefully we'll develop more resources as the time goes on. So yeah.
So I was thinking, I'm trying to do it so that all these little things, there's like a reason behind them. It is quite well thought. So the colours so originally, you can see it behind there. So the circle that's going around Courage, it was multicoloured. So why did you decide on that sort of logo?
Because after Olivia died, Shannon's daughter, there was a huge rainbow. And I wanted to incorporate the rainbow in what we were doing. And I felt it was kind of like everybody was included. But in 2020, we had COVID, and the rainbow was a sign for NHS and COVID. So I tried to incorporate it still, and then it just wasn't. It's so difficult to incorporate your colour as the rainbow.
Yeah.
It gets lost in loads of other groups like LGBT, the NHS, the NHS Hero. Do you know what I mean? There was just so many other things. So, and then Elena came and talked to me about the psychology of colour as a Jew, as a Jake as well, and Dave. So, and it had been playing on my mind for a little bit that we needed a colour, but I think I was just too indecisive for a little while. And then we did a couple of Facebook polls, and everybody liked green. So that was kind of like, wow. Yeah, and then of course Courage is green because he's a caterpillar, and green is kind of like for life.
Yeah,
and I quite like that. It's quite, new life.
Yeah,
you two tend to think of like
green's quite a sort of a if you look at the psychology of colours as well, it's quite a natural, new life, calming colour, isn't it?
Yeah, but I also wanted to include purple.
Why purple?
So Lydia in the Bible. So I was very, very conscious when I was pregnant that I wanted a biblical name for my daughter or son, and me and Dave couldn't agree on a name at all. So
I'm not supposed
to. All the things I really liked, he really didn't like, or things that he liked, I really didn't like. So it was kind of like, oh, goodness me. So I was praying one night, and I was like, I really need a biblical name, and we need to come to something quick, because he or she could come any day, and we're still not in agreement, and that's not how, that's not how I want things. And so I was just reading the Bible, and I don't know why I was reading the Bible that time, because it was in the middle of bedtime for Caitlin.
Yeah.
So I don't even know why. Must have just got distracted. And I was reading about Lydia in the Bible, and I was like, that's the name. That is the name.
So who's Lydia in the Bible?
So Lydia in the Bible, she was the seller of purple, and purple was at the time and is the colour of royalty. And I thought, I love that. I absolutely love it. And I thought, I don't know how I'm going to approach it with him now, because we got to the point that it was like baby names. Oh, both of us kind of just don't want to discuss it kind of thing. So yeah, it got to that point. And I thought, how am I going to bring this up? And I thought, no, I've seen the name now. And I just thought, it's me carrying this baby, so even if he doesn't want it, I'm like, even after birth, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, that's a name.
That's it. Yeah.
And I said, Lydia, and he went, I love it. And I thought, right, that's her name then. And almost from like that moment, I thought, we might be having a girl.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of.
Oh, so you didn't know at that point?
Oh no, I didn't want to know. And then we went to church the next day, and our pastor at the time, Steve, then preached for the whole sermon on Lydia, and I was an absolute mess. And like my tears were piling up here. I kept wiping them away, thinking, I can't believe it. And I thought, and then he spoke about purple and the significance of the colour, and I thought, yep, she's going to be called Lydia. And when that happens, everything that she owns will be purple. But I thought, it's quite nice, isn't it? And then she was born, and then as things developed with her disability, she had to be tube fed for a while. And then the nurse came in. She was doing our tube training, feeding and syringes. And she said, I hope you like the colour purple. I said, why is that? And so everything with regards to tube feeding is purple in colour.
Right, is it?
Yeah. So it was kind of like her thing. Well, we made it her thing.
Yeah.
But I did like the thought of the kids and the families that we serve. Like, there's so much disability discrimination. Even just like undercurrents of it, which probably, a lot of people probably haven't even picked up on. But when you get to it, you think, it's because they're disabled. And I just thought, I really want the kids and the families to be treated like royalty.
Yeah.
So I really wanted purple in there as well. So we kind of came to a bit of an executive decision through pressure, because I would never have made a decision otherwise. To go with green with a purple uniform.
Nice.
So we got there in the end.
But everything, like you said, is all well thought of, isn't it? It's not just like you've pulled something out of the air. There's like meaning behind it all.
Everything.
Yeah.
Sentiment.
Yeah. And obviously, I think we were saying it earlier with courage. Caterpillar. So that originally started as Lydia's toes.
Yeah, Lydia's toes.
And what's the stage by stage?
So stage by stage, step by step. So because it was her little footprints that made the butterfly, I thought, that's nice, isn't it? That we're with. And a lot of children with disabilities, they don't hit milestones. And I can't stand that. Because
so milestones is in?
Development milestones. And professionals sometimes can be very quick to say, they haven't met any of their milestones. And then it's like, well, actually they're doing a hell of a lot better than they were ever predicted to do. Some of them, why can't we celebrate that?
Yeah.
Like 3 days ago, she was on a ventilator and she was dying. She's come off that ventilator now and she's breathing by herself. And yet we're talking milestones. Like, I could have lost her. Why aren't we celebrating like the small wins?
Yeah.
So I thought, well, regardless of what stage we're at, like whether it's like pregnancy or coming off a ventilator, like why can't we celebrate stage by stage? Because hopefully that's where we this group will be with each other stage by stage and step by step, So there's that. But the advocate army has developed because caterpillars congregate in an army. So there is a psychology or a meaning to everything. So because of that, yeah, I did like the thought of like the Advocate Army. I thought it was quite like,
yeah,
we are fighting a war. It's not against anyone in particular, but you know, I quite like the fact that a lot of parents with children with disabilities, they suffer post-traumatic stress disorder, like soldiers. There's a lot of things that coincide the army theme that I thought, yeah, and with going back to what Claire used to say, we developed a friendship quite quickly, I think due to a shared trauma, like Men in War. So I felt that when she does like to say that quite a lot, but actually, like, with him becoming the head of the army, or our Advocate Army, I thought, yeah, it ties up with all of our story.
Yeah.
And it's quite a nice way of bringing things together. And with regards to butterflies, they congregate in kaleidoscopes. So, and I quite liked that idea. So our bereavement room is officially called the Kaleidoscope. And I quite like that idea because I found with my grief journey, I've only been on it for nearly 18 months now, but I found quite quickly with anything really, you find your feet quite quickly, don't you? And then it's the journey ahead of you. But I found quite quickly that grief consists of the same components for everyone to some extent. Like, we're all dealing with the same elements of grief. It's just you turn that kaleidoscope one way and it displays a completely different picture. And that's true of everybody individually coping with their grief, but like on a day-to-day as well, like it can shift quite quickly. And I thought, yep, I really like the fact that that's how it comes together.
Yeah, because a kaleidoscope is like different colours. It's like it's like iridescent type sort of amalgamating. Can't get my meshing together. Got my pockets, hands stuck in my pocket.
But yeah. I like the fact that, like, you've seen me. Some mornings I can be waking up and I'm like, yeah, everything's fine today. I'm pumped. I'm like, Jim, on it at 6 o'clock in the morning with Jake, and then come 3 o'clock in the morning, you're like, what's happened? And I'm like, nothing. My life is just falling apart because I have no idea why. And it can shift as quickly as that. And for absolutely no well, I don't think there's a reason. Sometimes I look back and go, that was it. That's what triggered me. But yeah, and I quite like the fact that with the kaleidoscope and the butterfly theme, and yeah, it's coming together quite nicely.
Quite nice. Yeah, cool. But yeah, I think I wanted you to explain that, because to explain that in a reel I don't think it would come across.
It's quite a long story.
Well, we said we would do this for half an hour and we were going to run out of things to say.
43 minutes.
There we are.
But no, yeah, I think, yeah. Actually, like, when you say it out loud.
Yeah, I think people that have followed your journey or been a part of Advocates and Angels can sort of see, oh, well, that's where that idea came from, or that's where that sort of little campaign, and that's where that fundraising idea came from. And I think it just sort of builds a picture of sort of why it started and sort of where it's come from. And then, you know, there's so much more to talk about, and we can look at that when we do other videos.
Episode 2.
But I'd really want to do something around discrimination, disability. I think that's a big topic that we need to talk about more. Yeah. But yeah, we didn't even have anything written down for this, did we?
No.
You were like, I haven't got any notes. I haven't got any questions.
That's you getting in my head, that is.
Why?
Because you're always like, oh, have a bit of a plan. You can't just go out there. And I'm like, yeah, good point. And then never turn up with a plan and then think, why didn't I plan this? But I'm learning.
Yeah. Well, should we finish that there then?
Well, thanks for joining. and listening. But yeah.
Brew. Did that at the same time then.